Ow! Greetings, YouTube. This is DecKrash, better known as Brandon. Alright, I said I was going to do a special thing for my book reviews, but recently I just started getting into a new series that I really wanted to share with you guys. This has become a new favorite for me. Now, of course, a lot of you know that I do like vampire books. Yes, I'm going to be reviewing another vampire book, but before you decide to press the stop button, please hear me out. Okay, this is the Vampire for Hire series by J.R. Rain. Now, thus far, I have gotten up to the 4th book in the series. The books at the time I'm making this video, from what I can see, just the main novels in the series are Moondance, Vampire Moon, American Vampire, Moonchild, Christmas Moon, Vampire Dawn, Vampire Games, Moon Island, Moon River, and Vampire Sun. Now, the reason why I'm doing this review through audio rather than visual like I normally do is because I've only been downloading the ebooks. I actually one of those guys that can do it either way. I prefer paper books, but ebooks I find more convenient. So in this series, they gave away the first few books for free, and I got it on a lark. I'm part of several reading groups online, and they showed this book off as a freebie. So I was like, well, I like vampire stories, so I got the book. And it was the first 2 books, Moondance and Vampire Moon, kind of a 2-in-1 thing. And I absolutely fell in love. Now, I'm not a big fan of mystery novels. I'm just never really gotten into mysteries. Now, I guess maybe it's simply because I actually did like to watch things like Law and Order. Back when I was still living with my parents, my mom was a big, well, she still is, I think, is still a big fan of the series. And I'll actually sit down and watch Law and Order whenever I can, even though I don't have cable myself, but I can always watch like recorded episodes and such. And I always found the series very entertaining. It's very good to see all the twists and turns that every case goes through. So maybe at heart I do like certain types of mysteries, but they really have to kind of get me. Law and Order did. This isn't really Law and Order. It's more of I'm not even going to call it a hard-boiled detective novel. It's really just a detective novel which happens to have a vampire as the main character. And yes, I know what you're thinking. We've seen, you probably say, oh, I like this better when it was called Forever Night. Let me explain. Okay, the main character is a woman named Samantha Moon. She was a former FBI agent who worked mostly for housing and urban development, usually would bust scammers for property swindlers and stuff like that. But then at the point of the story, the first story, she was attacked 6 years ago by an unknown assailant who turned her into a vampire. And so her body had gone through all kinds of different changes. One of the things that they pretty much put you through in the beginning of the first book is what she can and cannot do. Like, sunlight does hurt her. It even burns her. She has to put on really thick sunblock, and even then it really puts the hurt on her. Her body is her circadian rhythms. That's how your body manages your sleep and wake cycles. They've been altered to the point where being up during the daytime is very physically taxing for her. She can't eat human food. She can only drink blood. It can be any kind of blood, but the cleaner the blood, the better it tastes, and if it's human blood, it's the most nourishing. She's also found out she's super strong, of course, and super fast. She does some pretty amazing superhuman feats in the story. I guess if you're a vampire book fan, that kind of thing never gets old, especially when it's told from the point of view of someone who's experiencing it for the first time, realizing more and more that she's not human. It's both an exhilarating and frightening experience, and I'll get back to that in a moment. She was a former FBI agent, as I said, and when she was attacked, she was turned into a vampire, and so she has to juggle her new job as a private investigator, because now she has to do everything at night, and with being, a devoted mom. And as the first book starts out, having a relationship, a very strained relationship with her husband. And I'm not going to go into that too much. I really want y'all to go out and read this series of books. So the first bit of the first book is focused, of course, on Samantha's realizing, she it basically shows to the ropes what she is, what she's been doing, showing you what she can and can't do. And as the stories progress, her powers are actually growing. She begins to be able to realize she can do a whole lot more things. I don't want to tell you what they are, but because discovering a power often has something significant to do with the story, with the cases that she's trying to solve. And throughout the whole deal, she learns a lot more about what she is and everything else that sort of surrounds it. It's still a learning experience with each story. More and more is revealed about all the things that she can do and all her powers, it really takes the reader on a really emotional ride, because, as I've said, she's having to juggle her personal life as a mother and her business life as a detective, and figuring out what she is. And it's her own private hell, because she liked human food, and she can no longer eat it. Every time she tries to eat human food, the only thing that she can take in is water and white wine. She can also chew gum, and she later on, I'll spoil that a little bit. She later on finds out she can chew gum and smoke. But that's pretty much the extent of anything she can take into herself. And in either way, she can only drink white wine, because anything else that's not pure, her body ends up rejecting. She ends up, puking it back up. But it's her own private hell, because she has to juggle all this kind of stuff, keeping that kind of a secret, and yet, being burdened with all this power and having to wield it responsibly. And there are a lot of times where she has to make decisions about what would be the right thing to do. There's some pretty harrowing experiences that she goes through in these books, so it's a big emotional roller coaster ride. But yet the story, I think that's one of the big things that keeps you interested, because because it's a mystery, because each case she has to go through is, she's solving mysteries, so it naturally leaves you wanting to know what's going to happen next. And also because it puts it in a very personal light, all told from Samantha's point of view. Samantha is a very human character, despite the fact that she is no longer human. It has a very colorful cast, from her co-workers when she was working with the FBI to all the different people that she meets. J.R. Ward has a good penchant for description, and of course, well, you have to naturally have a good talent for description if you're writing a detective novel. I mean, what's the point of writing a good detective novel if you can't be descriptive? Because you have to make sure that that the reader is going to understand exactly what this person is seeing. But because of the fact that Samantha's a vampire, there's so much more that she can see, and I'm not going to spoil that for you either. But it leads you to understand the world as she perceives it, and how she's becoming a better detective because of it, utilizing her new powers for that purpose. It has a great excuse me, has a great cast of characters. Like I said, each with their own distinctive personalities and looks, and you find many of them, ranging from very endearing to people you want to strangle, and some you actually want to kill, and some, when they do die, and yes, there are deaths in this story, you actually find yourself feeling relieved. And there are, of course, a few cases where you really kind of wish something really bad would happen to this particular character. Uh, and I'm speaking about a situation that Samantha gets herself into early on in the first book, and it isn't resolved to the end of the second one, and you just keep feeling more and more anger and outraged at what's going on in her life. Read the book. So incredible description, great characters. And well, though not an absolutely unique take on the vampire subgenre. Although, well, kind of like in Twilight, these vampires don't seem to have fangs, but that's not a big deal. At least they don't sparkle when sunlight hits them. For those of you who are probably wondering, do they sparkle? No, they don't. But it's an interesting take on the vampire subgenre, and as I said before, it's not so depressing as Forever Night was. The series has a very good, fun, and witty dialogue, and sometimes a little bit cheesy, but it's one of those, it's the good cheese moments where you have that kind of pleasant groan rather than like, oh, please, why? There are a couple of moments where they'll sneak in a turn of a phrase or a pun there that you were deep down in your subconscious mind thinking, please don't say that, but they say it anyway, and you're like, I hate you. But otherwise, the dialogue is very witty and smart, and it is reminiscent of detective novels if you read them. Ward really has a good feel for that kind of thing, and it keeps you really interesting. Throughout the whole deal, Samantha never loses kind of her sharp wit and her sharp tongue, and despite all the things that are going on in her life. And I just finished reading Moonchild, which ends on a very, very, very painful note. Uh, but yet she's still able, in that inner monologue way of the first person perspective writing that you see, it still pulls you in with that very witty inner monologue and then witty dialogue. She never seems to stop short, and it doesn't feel unnatural. It doesn't feel like, should you be cracking jokes at a time like this? You don't take it as cracking jokes, and you really do feel that the way the dialogue works, the way and J.R. Ward's actually a guy, but I was thinking of her in the way of Samantha. But anyway, the way Samantha, dialogue involving Samantha and even some of the characters comes off, despite the gravity of a particular situation, it never comes off feeling uh, disingenuous. It always feels natural, feels right. And so I think that Ward is really pulling off something special with this. And you find are able so you're able to read it and not feel like you're reading something that's cliched. Not only that, but Samantha is a very well-rounded, well thought out character, vulnerable where she needs to be, strong as tough as nails where she needs to be. One moment weeping and crying over a situation that anyone, male or female, would weep and cry about, and the next moment just being a total Mr. T. So you understand once you read it. So people, I highly, highly recommend this series. If you like vampire books, I can't recommend it enough. I found myself falling in love with this series, and I'm very, very picky with what I read, especially with vampire stories. I mean, um, I've read the Vampire Chronicles. I've read, of course, the Twilight books. I tried reading House of Night. House of Night kind of turned me off with the. I don't like the vitriol that's given against Christians, even though I know they're trying to make a point about something else. But this one is good for people who want to be introduced to vampire books because it has a good grounding in what's going on in the real world and puts, of course, the whole deal about being a vampire in perspective from that character. And I know it's not the first book to have done that. All the Vampire Chronicles are all first-person books. Uh, but this one, I think, plays it off really well. And that's, okay, it just hit me. That's the big difference. Where I was saying the Vampire Chronicles, I'm talking about Anne Rice Vampire Chronicles, for those of y'all who don't know. They're great dialogue and everything like that, but they come off as pretentious. This does not. This is an easy read, a very easy series of books to get into, not terribly long, and it's a real page turner. This is the first time I've actually I took out my tablet device, which has a processor that sucks monkey rocks, and actually I used to read, and I actually was taking the thing everywhere I went to read it. As I said before, highly recommend it. Can't recommend it highly enough. Oh my God. If it had not been for some parts of the cheesy dialogue, it would have made a perfect 10, but it scores 9.85 out of 10 on my scale. People, you owe it to yourselves to check this out. The Amazon has like about 1,000,001 different iterations of this series, some with several books all in one, and others just getting the individual books, and I think they've been releasing it sporadically. Sometimes you can get it for free. So you have no excuse. If you have a Kindle, if you have a Kindle app, you can download Kindle on your computer, and actually it's available in paperback form. I saw the first 4 books available in my local bookstore. Go read now. You'll love it. So that's it for me, and I promise you the next book review is going to be the one that I was talking about. But I had to get this out. So, any questions, comments, as I said, leave them down below in the comment section. Keep it civil as always. I will erase trolls from the planet. So anyway, as always, guys and gals, this is DecKrash, better known as Brandon. Stay lucky and stay blessed. Take care.